I just look back on that day like, man, I can remember that day. Like, that one day changed so many things, and umpteen years later, I can credit that day as the day that God was like, no, I sent you this woman to direct you and put you on this right path. And I had no idea what my path. I thought I knew what my path was gonna be. I didn't have no idea what my path was gonna be. You know, one of the things my wife and I had to overcome was the fact that when my career started taking off in radio and things started moving and shifting, it's almost like the roles reversed.
Don't bring no drama my way. Don't bring no drama my way. Don't bring no drama my way. Yeah, I might have a great day. Don't bring no drama my way. Don't bring no drama my way. Don't bring no drama my way. Yeah.
What's up, everybody? It's your girl Lish Speaks, and I am here with another episode of my podcast, I'll Just Let Myself In. It's the podcast where we don't wait for imaginary permission slips or some seat at an imaginary table. We literally walk through our God-given doors and do the very things that God has empowered us to do. Today, I have a guest who is really a legend in our space, a legend in our space. I'm going to read a little something here that I wrote.
Okay.
Just to introduce you guys, okay? Sitting on the couch with me today, I have a celebrated host, an assistant program director and producer. He's Stellar Award nominated, a Gospel Hall of Famer. He's a father, he's a husband, and now he's an author. The book, My Hurt, Your Heal, The Greater the Obstacle, The Greater the Glory. Neiko Flowers is in the building with me today, y'all. What's up, man?
I'm doing well. How are you, Lish?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. I'm excited to have you here.
I'm excited to have you too.
Yeah, man. We've been talking on this couch for way longer than we needed to. So we had to start saying, okay, wait, let's save this for the podcast. Exactly. But such a wealth of experience, wisdom, knowledge, and now vulnerability.
Yeah.
You have. And so I am excited because I got to do, not only did I get to read the book, I got to watch you interview other people. I got to watch some interviews that you've done. And I got to be honest and tell you, from what I've witnessed, from what I've heard, there's a true sense of love and passion for what you do. It's very clear to me that you believe you're called not just to have great conversations and have fun and bring light to people's lives through your various platforms and through gospel music, but that you have stepped into a place where you feel called to help people heal through your deep vulnerability.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. I got to say, I closed my eyes while you were saying the introduction, and I got emotional just listening to that because it was so, for so many years, I didn't see all of the things that people saw in me.
Yeah.
So to hear that and to be in a place of acceptance in this new era of me, which is, I was like, oh, okay, I have done some things, you know what I mean?
I
and I have touched some people, you know what I mean? But that was, so I appreciate that. Thank you so much for that.
I left some things out. Macaroni, or Bridging the Gap, Neiko's Flowers. We can go. You know what I'm saying? We can go.
Yeah.
Listen, man. I truly just admire, I'm new in this space of media, and I meet a lot of people, but there was something very special and specific about when I met you. We had a very real conversation, just off the rip, and it made me curious. I think you don't get into some of the spaces that you've gotten into purely because of talent. We know a lot of talented people, you know what I mean, in every industry, right? And so people who are well loved, well liked, seem to be able to move in different spaces. I'm always very aware that, this person has something else. It's not just talent, because there's a lot of talented people, and I think the something else for you, from what I've seen, is authenticity. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it makes so much sense that you wrote this book. Yeah. But we're going to get into that in a second. I do have so many questions for you. Okay. Because I feel like your story and how you got to where you are now started, right, as a young person. And so you said something about a church that you grew up in.
Yes.
New Hope Missionary Baptist Church.
That's
you said
it.
It's where gospel took a hold of me and wrapped itself around my heart.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about the little boy.
Yeah.
At that church and where you from? Wilmington,
Wilmington,
North Carolina. Tell me a little bit about that part of your life.
So that is when you mentioned the church, I immediately got warm because that's what it makes me feel. That church, was the same church that my grandparents helped build, and it was the church that all my aunties, uncles, they went to. So it was a generational church. Yeah. So by the time we came, it was like this foundation. It was like this family outside of my family. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it felt like and we were there days out the week. You know what I mean? Like we were there like 2-3 days out the week. If it wasn't choir rehearsal, it was prayer meeting, vacation Bible school, all those things. And I remember although I have a lot of aunts and a few uncles, but I just remember it just feeling like an extended family. There was you could check. Your kid's gonna get checked by deacon, evangelist, whomever, because that's the type of relationship we had. And I remember my mom, who was so different from me, especially now, she was very outgoing. I was not that child at all. No. My mom she was had all the leads on the church choir. She was the one.
That's right.
She was doing all of that. And so she kind of was pushing me towards that, I would be at the choir rehearsal, so I would hear all the songs and do all the things, and she used to always be like, you can't be knowing the music, on the radio, and you don't know these songs.
Oh, that's my mother too.
Don't get shy, because when you're in the car, you're singing all the songs. Not this song, and she pushed me into that. And I remember, I think that's when my first love of gospel music came, because my mom really enforced that in me. Yeah. We would listen to music, all types of music, but it was very clear that, gospel church was how I was going to be raised. And all of my cousins, which I call my siblings, because we all grew up as siblings. And so when I think about that, I think of a warm place. Yeah. It's very old school. It's not like church today.
Yeah. No social media.
No social media. I'm talking red carpet pews.
Oh my.
The water up under the altar, all that stuff. So robes. You don't see robes like that in churches
no more. No, you do not see robes like that in church anymore. You don't.
It was like that. So when I think about it, I think of just this comfort.
I love that. You talked about how, your childhood wasn't perfect in terms of you weren't the richest and different things like that. But you said my childhood was made up of moments that, looking back, feel like snapshots of something bigger than survival. That resonated with me, and I'm going to tell you why. I'm from Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. And I always tell people I'm from old Bed-Stuy, not Bed-Stuy now. You walk through Bed-Stuy now, it's an oasis. Yeah. I'm from Bed-Stuy in the 90s. Yeah. Okay. I'm from, one block could be tree lined, literally. Stuyvesant was tree lined, brownstones, and then Malcolm X Avenue was Chinese restaurants, liquor stores, gambling, pizza shop. My father's best friend at the time, one of his best friends owned a barber shop. It was different, different worlds. Yeah. And when I think about my childhood, although being raised in a single parent home, it wasn't the most glamorous. Yeah. I also very much feel like it was more than just survival. There was a beauty. There was a protection. Yeah. There was a culture. There was music. There was food. Yeah. It was survival, but it wasn't just survival. So I love that you wrote that in there. Do you attribute, and I'm guessing you would, that to your mom mostly?
Yeah, definitely. She definitely made that a thing. Yeah. It's so funny you mentioned the food, the music, because I literally remember we would alternate houses. Specifically, my house was one of the main houses. My mom will open it up on Sundays after church. We would have the food, we would have the music, all the cousins would be running around. We would have that interaction, and so I agree. It just reminds me of those simple times. You know what I mean? You mentioned earlier, before social media, it was just you were just so focused on who was around you and what y'all was doing. You ain't care nothing about. No. We like to go outside then. You know what I mean? We look to do that. Yeah. And so, now it's I don't get that same vibe all the time, but definitely for sure. Yeah. Mom she definitely instilled that in me for sure.
I love that. Yeah. I love that. It's important that you talked about that, because later on in the book, when you talk about some of the hurts, right? For you to still have the overview of your life, that it wasn't just survival.
Yeah.
To me, shows me how tapped in you are to God's grace, his goodness, his wholeness, right? That hard things could be going on.
Yeah.
But he's still a good God. He's still a good father.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that that's such an important, it flows throughout the whole book.
Yeah.
That grace, you don't belabor, but you also don't neglect.
Yeah.
It's, guys, get the book. It's really good.
Yeah.
Now, I'm about to get really into this, but
Okay.
before I do that,
Yes.
all right, I have
Yeah.
some questions of my own in terms
Okay.
of this whole
Okay.
radio business stuff.
Okay, cool. Let's do
so
it.
you talked about how your wife,
Yeah.
I love this, told you to go to the dentist with her. 6:30 in the morning, right? You're
Yeah.
like, I should
Yeah.
have known that was crazy. But she was taking you in to shadow someone at your local radio station.
Yeah.
And that really changed the trajectory of your life. Just tell me a little bit about how that day went. Tell me a little bit about what that sparked in you to know, like, dang, I want to do radio.
I remember that day so clear as day, y'all. Like we were in our apartment, and the night before, she literally asked me the night before. This was not days before. And so I think that's probably why I wasn't really clearly thinking straight.
She know what she was doing.
I was like, okay, whatever. And I just went on. She was like, hey, I got a dentist appointment. I think it was like 6:30 in the morning or something like that. And I want you to go with me. Okay, whatever. And so I remember waking up that morning, and it didn't dawn on me, y'all. Like, I'm talking late. We get there, and mind you, the radio station was in the same building as a dentist office. Well, the dentist office was downstairs, and the radio station was up. So I knew there was a dental office there. So I was like, okay, cool. But then I was like, it's still dark outside. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's still dark. Like, ain't no wait. What dentist office is gonna let us walk in here? It ain't no light. So we got there, and then like when instead of like going to the right to the dentist, she kind of like hit a left on me, and I'm like, well, the dentist right there, so what we going here for? And she pushed a little button, they buzzed her, and they said coming down. And ironically, when they came down, the person that came down is actually somebody who grew up in the same hometown as me, Wilmington, North Carolina. So I already was familiar with him. And I was like, what in the world is going on? And then that's when on the elevator, he told me, and they told me that, hey, you know, your wife reached out and da-da-da-da-da, and here we are. And I'm like, what in the world? Like, so it was a shock. It was a shock because, you know, up until that point, I had no interest in doing radio. I didn't. I had no. I was so stuck on I'm gonna be an actor. I was so stuck on I want to do television. I'm gonna be. I watched the Oscars. I'm like, yeah, that's me. And it was my mother-in-law, my wife, who really was like, bro, as much as you love people, as much as you listen to music and you know music,
That's me. Yeah.
like you know music, like I just would be like, yo, 1992, like, you know what I'm saying, like, you know, and just come out with something. They was like, nah, you need to do radio. I was like, radio. And so that's why she took the initiative and did that. Because to be honest, I might not be sitting right here in this moment had it not been for my wife, which is another testament of she knew me better in the moment than I knew myself.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
I love that.
And I just look back on that day and be like, man, that one, I can remember that day. Like, that one day changed so many things. And umpteen years later, I can credit that day as the day that God was like, no, I sent you this woman to direct you and put you on this right path. And I had no idea what my path. I thought I knew what my path was going to be. I didn't have no idea what my path was going to be. So that was a very cool moment. And to this day, those people are still very influential in my life. They're my mentors. I reach out to them when I go back home. I get up with them. It's so weird because I started off as an intern, and now for them, they're like, man, like you have like went way past. I remember when you started, and now to see you get the awards and the book and all that, it's crazy. So you know, shout out to my wife, man.
Shout out to your wife,
bestie.
Man. Listen. Let me tell you something. A man that findeth a wife, finds a good thing. And I think when I was reading that, I was smiling ear to ear because your relationship with your wife reminds me so much of my relationship with my husband. I'm a big dreamer. My dreams got dreams. My plans got plans.
Facts.
You know, so much so that I'm finally starting to get to the point where I'm starting to like realize you need to give some stuff away. Like some of the dreams God gives you might not be for you to do. So if I have a person in my life who I'm like, I think I have this idea. You know what I mean? If you want to try it, maybe we can go in on it together or something. But I'm starting to finally realize you can't do everything. But I feel like your relationship with your wife reminds me of my relationship with my husband, because you need someone who can take calculated risk. See, people like us, we'll take the risk. It all.
I'll jump off the bridge.
Risk it all.
Jump off the bridge.
Because in our mind, it ain't no way it ain't gonna work.
Right.
There's no way. And their mind is like, this could not work, not because of you. Because us, it's like, it's gonna work because I'm doing all the hard work and I'm great and I'm putting in work and I'm a hustler. And you need a spouse that's gonna say, hey, it might not work. Not because of you. Love you. You're great.
Right.
But that's life.
Yeah.
So maybe let's have some other thoughts.
That's so real. I'm just getting to the point where I appreciate that about her, though. Because for so long, I used to be like, don't be hating on my dreams. Like, you know what I'm saying? Don't hate on my dreams.
Yes.
I could do it. She'd be like, okay, like, you know, you could.
Yeah.
But, you know, you need to put a little bit more thought into it before you do it. So now I appreciate that, because it's the balance.
Yes. It's
that
the
I
balance.
need.
Yes.
And as much as I be like, yo, I'm a big faith jumper. Like, listen, I will be like, we're moving to California.
Yes.
We're doing it. I don't know what we doing when we get there.
No plan. No place to live.
God said, let's go. You know, like, and she'd be like, whoa, we got kids. Where we gonna stay?
Who's insurance?
Right. Yeah, like, we got good benefits here. What we doing? And so now I appreciate that, because I'd be like, ooh, boy, I'm glad I listened to you about that.
You know who helped me with that?
What's that?
They didn't help me personally. I don't know them. But I saw Kev on stage. And his wife Melissa on a podcast.
Yeah.
I think it was Dear Future Wifey. And let me tell you, they really spoke life into us. We were driving somewhere and we were listening to it, and we just both kept laughing because the way that Kevin talked about Melissa was the way that I would talk about my husband. And it's the same. It's like, you just don't believe and you just got to see the vision and da-da-da-da.
It's so funny you say that, because we read their book. Well, I did the audio version. My wife read it, but we had conversations.
Marriage Be Hard.
Marriage Be Hard. And I just met Kevin on stage for the first time maybe about a month ago.
Okay.
And I got the chance to tell him, I was like, man, listen, your relationship with your wife really was a mirror to me and mine, you know, and my wife was there at the time with me. And it was really cool for him to say, man, thank you. Because I really love their transparency.
Yes, me too.
And he said something recently that had me cracking up. And I told my wife, because I'm a big Chipotle. I love Chipotle.
Me too.
And so I said, Kev said, if your wife know your Chipotle order and you ain't got to tell her, you better keep that woman in your life. Like, it's little things. Right? And I was like, yeah. Like, she know how to make my plate without asking me. Like, she know how much this I like. You know, so as you grow, you like all the things that people be like, oh, I want this, that, and the third. Like, listen, I want somebody who know my social security number. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
word, right?
You know,
seriously. You know it all.
That's love.
Yes.
That's love. You know my social? You care. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Make the doctor's appointments and everything.
Right. You know what I'm saying?
And that's the thing. This is what I want specifically my women to understand. This is not a gender thing.
No.
This is a gifts thing. This is a strengths thing. Whichever partner has the strengths, the gifts, that's the partner who should be at the forefront of certain things. He's at the forefront of business stuff because I'm bad at business. You know what I mean? It's no mystery that I've been in entertainment in some form or fashion for the last almost 20 years. And it's just after the 2 years that I've been married that some of y'all are like, oh, Lish, you're great. The business wasn't right. I had to get the right
y'all
spouse.
Y'all don't know the secret weapon behind me.
I'm telling you.
There's a secret weapon.
You know? And so when I was reading the book and just seeing, you know, her forethought, she didn't even know, and I don't know your wife personally yet, but she gave the world a gift by taking you to that radio station. Like, that's kingdom. That's so kingdom. You feel me?
It's so kingdom, man. I just be like, I don't know, y'all.
That's
like,
kingdom.
I still be shocked. Like, sometimes I'd be like, God, how did we get here? You know, like, how did we get here? Because again, it wasn't my plan.
Right.
But, you know, seeing how everything looks now, I tell people often, I say all the no's make sense now. I used to get so frustrated with no's, and because I used to kind of be a little bitter, like, well, God, I ain't want to be in radio no way. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, but now you got me in radio and I want that job. And they don't want to give it to me So what am I doing? And now it's like, well, I got you in here for a reason. It wasn't revealed at the time.
Yeah.
And I truly believe that it's uncovering and it's making more sense now. So
amazing,
it makes sense.
Amazing. Listen, for those of us who are newly married, right? Newly in the media space career. When I say those of us, I'm talking about myself. What advice would you give? You can either give that combined for those two categories or separate, but just what advice do you have for people like us, newly married, maybe starting a new career, trying to keep God first, but wanting to genuinely be successful? Like no false humility about, I'm just doing this just in case. No, like we really want to make it happen. Be a go-getter like yourself. Like what advice do you have?
I would say, and this is just being transparent, one of the things my wife and I had to overcome was the fact that when my career started taking off in radio and things started moving and shifting, it's almost like the roles reversed. Like when I was in my place and not knowing who I was going to be, my wife had graduated college. She had got her first big job. She was making the money. She was, I was like still trying to figure out my life. Like, Lord, this woman out here doing it. And I'm just like, Lord, I got to get myself together, and it was when stuff started to shift, it was finding the balance and understanding that we each are going to have our times, like, so there's a time for her to support me. There's a time for me to support her. And I always try to remember and remind her that although, yes, we're going to this event and, it may be in my arena, I still want to shine the light on you, so there's plenty of interviews, especially like on red carpets. I tell my wife all the time, it's like, I'm going to be there, but I need you to be there. I need you to shine. Yeah. This is your moment too, as much as in mine, because had it not been for you, I wouldn't be in this situation. And so I always try to remember that as much as you support me, I support you as well. So having a person that supports you is so key, because I've seen in so many marriages that the spirit of jealousy can come across, you know what I mean? And, we had to have some moments where it's like, hey, it's just my time. Yeah. That doesn't mean I don't support you. But so there's times when I'm like behind the scenes and nobody knows. My wife she's a choreographer. She's a dancer. So there's times when this is how funny God is. She got me in this business, but because of my relationships,
she gets opportunities as well.
She gets the opportunities now, because I'm always shopping my wife.
Of course.
Some of her biggest things, and not all of them, but a couple of her biggest ones came because I was in this industry and I was like, hey, my wife does that for real. And it's having somebody who understands the full goal. Yeah. Our full goal was to be powerful together. Yes. You know what I mean? So just because it's your season to shine doesn't mean that their season's not coming. Because it's the same way, she may help me with XYZ. I may go home and be like, hey, let me reach out to my artist friend who got a new record out, and I think you can do some choreography to this, and I know you're going to kill it. Yeah. And it just boom. So compromise, communication, of course. Through a lot of therapy, I had to get my communication right. Yes. Because, I wasn't always the easiest person, but that was dealing with some things that I had to overcome. Yeah. And so communication and compromising and, as far as career-wise, it's, when you could tell, like for me, I can tell when God was like, okay, this is where you need to be. I really wanted to make myself the most authentic person I could be. Yeah. When I first got into the gospel arena, I remember, because I came from R&B and hip hop, and I remember, man, I was trying to sound like all types of deacons and pastors, and my wife would call me. She was like, you sound crazy. Like, you do not have to put a scripture in every other sentence, bro. Like, it ain't. Yeah. But, I was trying to fit in. Yeah. And so I kind of lost myself. And she was like, no, be you. Yes. Be you. Like, even your little silly jokes. Like, that's who you are. Yeah. Like, do that. And so it was be comfortable. Like, you have to be your full, like, naked self. Yeah. Like, with your best friend, your spouse, And I would say the biggest thing is you got to be best friends. We just had this conversation like a couple of days ago, my wife and I, and it's like, man, like we really are, like we really, cause we like to dance, right? Cause that's how we used to go dancing years ago. And I told her, I said, we ain't going dancing in a while. I just want to go out, just the two of us, and just go dance. And we just have such a good time. Like we could just vibe, you know. And we always joke. We always joke. My daughter is so me, and my son is. They kind of switch, and we were like, "Oh my God, we're raising ourselves." So yeah, definitely compromise, and for career, you know, just be yourself, because what's for you is for you, and try to create your own lane. And sometimes you don't have to create it; it just comes off naturally. Yeah, it just comes off naturally. Yeah, and so yeah, that's what I would say to that.
Dope. Love that.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into the book a little bit. Okay. There are a couple of things that you talked about. Okay. You talked about infertility.
Yep.
You talked about, you know, would you call it molestation?
Yeah.
Sexual molestation, violation.
Yeah.
You talked about hardships of eviction.
Man.
And
repossessions.
Joblessness, trying to find yourself. Yeah. And you did it all in a very small book.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's why people are like, bro, like, whoa.
Yes.
You did it.
Yes.
And you know, everybody asking for part two. It's like when you have a first child, like, you gonna have another one? Like, whoa.
Look, give us a second. We just did this one.
Yeah. I'm like, whoo. Let me get over this one.
I read this book in one sitting.
Yeah.
Because it was that good. Yeah. It was a page turner. As I was telling you earlier, I picked it up. I wanted to start doing my research, make sure I, you know, had read the book.
Right.
And so I was like, all right, I'm going to read a little bit. And, you know, I'll read a little book throughout the week. And baby, one sitting, I read through. I could not put it down. You talked about having a sudden loss of a friend as well. I feel like you've been through so much, but you're so light. How do you do that?
You know,
I'm asking for a friend, a personal friend.
And you know what's so funny is because people thought I was light before, right? And now after the book came out, I'd be telling people like, no, I'm literally light now. Yeah. Like I feel myself that I'm light. Yeah. You know, that certain situation was my best friend. He was, you know, I called him my cousin because we stayed one house apart.
He said he was the reason you had moved to Charlotte.
He is the reason I moved to Charlotte. Very impactful, man. And literally, not even a month after I moved there, he was killed in a drive-by shooting. You know, and that was the first time I dealt with death. You know, I had grandparents to pass and stuff like that. But, you know, like out of the blue, you know, I believe he was 22 at the time. You know, and for somebody to just lose their life like that in a way like that, a drive-by shooting, that sounds like stuff that you hear like in movies. You know what I'm saying? So that was really tough for me because I just felt like I was kind of left out in the world alone because the person that got me there. And I often think like, had he not persuaded me to move, where would I be? You know what I mean? And what would I be doing if I was here? And so that was, I can remember that day clear as day. And I remember just being so dark in that time, just being so, you know, I talked about it in the book about just abusing alcohol and marijuana and, you know, just having my ways. Like my wife wasn't in my life at that moment, but she literally came in my life a few months later, you know, and at the time I wasn't trying to be locked down or nothing. So I was just out here just wandering the world. And the light comes from my true light. I would say the true light that I have now comes from being my most authentic self, understanding my purpose. I do believe that God was waiting for me to write this book. Because of all the things that I prayed for and all the things that I wanted to do in my life. Like I have these big goals and dreams. I do believe God's going to bring them to pass. But, you know, he was like, but only after you don't understand your real purpose until you do something like this. Because you're full naked. You out here naked to the world.
Right. You said to evolve, you need to reveal.
Yeah. And that's what God told me. He said, in order to evolve, you have to reveal. And I was like, I remember when I heard that, I was driving down the street and I was like, God, how much are we revealing? You know what I'm saying? Because wait a minute, Jesus. You know what I'm saying? Like, because how much are we revealing? How much are you talking?
Yeah, right.
Because I was like, okay, I can reveal some things.
Yeah,
I can
yeah,
reveal
yeah.
my issues with my dad and all that
Right,
stuff.
right,
You know,
right.
like when I heard everything,
Yeah.
you know, and you know, I almost feel like I have no like dark place in my heart
Right.
anymore.
Which is
you
a
know what I
beautiful
mean?
thing.
Like I'm just so like
Yeah.
I'm so ready for God just to be like, thank you for doing that. Now
Yeah.
I can get you where I need you to
Yeah.
be. Because the amount of people that are going to be healed
Yes.
from my hurt is the goal.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful place to be. So people have been, it's so crazy that you said the light thing, because so many people have been telling me that
Yeah.
lately.
Yeah.
Literally. Somebody told me that just randomly. It's like they was about to leave out the door. They was like, hey man, and I want to tell you, like, your light is da 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 da. I'm like,
Yeah.
what am I ain't doing nothing different.
No.
Like what
It's-
did I
it's-
say anything to that? You know? So it's a beautiful place to
Yeah,
be.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Let's talk about some other hurt
Yeah.
from a very young age.
Yeah.
For a span of about how many years would you say?
It was like
you
I would say
violated-
like 2, maybe 2.5. Yeah.
Yeah. By someone who was a decade or so older than you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, there was so much in it because you think about, especially how we grew up, right?
Yeah.
The kids were left alone, play in the
Yeah.
room, go play in the
Yeah.
room,
Yeah.
you know, and a lot of
Yeah.
adults had no idea what was happening at some of these
Yeah.
sleepovers
Absolutely.
and hangouts.
Yeah.
And so there was a part where you talked about trying to drown it out. Like,
Yeah.
this didn't really happen, or
Yeah.
maybe that
Yeah.
didn't happen.
Yeah.
And when you came to reality that you were violated,
Mm-hmm.
that it was by someone who, by all accounts, should have been protecting you on
Mm-hmm.
some level, or at least just being family to you, what was it like to finally realize, I gotta figure this out? It's not going away.
You know, it just, you know, as you get older, you know, obviously you become like, okay, man, this isn't right. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't right. And I think for me, it was more, I started seeing the way that individual would, you know, it would be like two different people. And be like two different people. Like in front of family, it'd be like, oh, one thing, and then it's like, then it'd be completely different. And I realized that, you know, this wasn't normal. This wasn't normal because I felt like nobody else, at least I didn't think so at the
Right.
time, nobody else was going through anything like this, you know? So to me, I was like, yeah, I don't like this. You
Right.
know, this is not okay with me. And then because my parents and my, you know, family didn't know, I was like, well, this definitely can't be right because I'm sure they ain't telling nobody.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so that was the thing where I was like, I don't like this. This is not normal. And I got to figure out how to get away with this. Because, you know, a lot of times when you are a child and, you know, somebody's older, you know, one of my biggest things was, I didn't understand, or I didn't know if somebody was going to believe me. You know what I mean? Like, because I was young. I had a lot of cousins. And I was just in this place of like,
Yeah.
if I say something, then it could like snowball.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to break the family apart. It's going to make people feel like, well, whose side's it? Who really telling the truth? You know what I mean? And I'm like, well, this person is a lot older than me. So they're adult.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So yeah.
Yeah. And I think, you know, about so many people in our culture, but in all cultures all around, who are afraid to speak up about the things that have happened to them, whether it be physical abuse, sexual abuse, mental and emotional abuse. We're just getting to a space in our culture where, you know, it's kind of celebrated, but it still takes a lot to be so vulnerable, and not just be vulnerable with your family and your friends, but be vulnerable with the world in a book. Yeah. How you talked about on an interview that I watched, you said before it came out, you had anxiety because you'll be willing to tell everybody until you have to tell everybody, right?
Yeah.
But since it's come out, you said you felt such a sense of freedom.
Yeah.
Are there days where it's still difficult? Are there conversations that you have to have with family members that are still unpleasant? Or is it kind of like, listen, it's in the book, I ain't talking about it no more? Read the book.
Yeah, no, I definitely have days. I definitely have days where I have to remind myself. It's in the weirdest thing. It could be out the blue. I could be in the grocery store and it just jumps up in my head thinking like, the whole world knows your story. You know, it's in those moments that I'd be like, I mean, it's out now.
Yeah.
So, you know, but yeah, it's definitely days where I have those moments, and it's definitely days where I have family members who like reach out to me, family members that I haven't spoke to in years, or they'll DM me on, you know, social media or something like that. And they would tell me like, wow.
Yeah.
And they would tell me information that I didn't know.
Yeah.
Like, and I think it kind of like made me feel like I did do the right thing, because some of the things that I did heard was kind of like stamping what I said. And I was like, oh, and then I realized that I just changed a whole generation.
Yeah.
Like, this is a generational curse that just was broken.
Yeah.
And that to me was so powerful.
It is.
Because I was like, I did this. And even though I put myself in a very vulnerable situation and it had to be the poster child for this, you know, the amount of people in my family that have reached out to me was like, that's your story.
Yeah.
We're not picking sides because what you didn't know is X, Y, Z. And I was like, oh my God, it's making sense now, you know? And so that was a very, you know, so
Yeah.
it's one of those things where I'd be like, especially with people who haven't seen me since the book came out.
Yeah. Because it's like the first time they say, like, bro.
Yo, like I told you, like, yeah,
I
like
didn't know,
it's
man.
people who haven't seen me since the book came out, and especially in person. And this is very honest. When my book came out, there was groups of people that I was concerned about.
Yeah.
And one of those groups was my coworkers. Because a lot of times, you know, we don't let our coworkers
know.
They see us as the person we come in as. That's it. You don't see my home life.
Yes.
You don't see.
Yes.
You don't know what my house look like. You don't know anything like that. But to be that vulnerable, with people that you don't even, some people that you don't even consider close.
Yeah, they don't know your favorite color.
Yeah,
Right.
it's like, oh boy. So that was interesting because I've gotten some really great responses from some of my coworkers, and I don't know. I just was like, it is what it is.
Yeah.
It is what it is. And I found that more people are wanting to explore the side of freedom.
Yeah.
You know, I tell people, man, y'all ain't living until you live the feeling I feel. You know, so I tell everybody that now.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
If you haven't already, how do you plan to have this conversation with your children?
I did.
You did?
Yeah.
Tell me about
I did.
that.
So I had the conversation with my children, and I wanted to do it before the book came out.
Okay.
You know, I didn't want them to hear it from anybody else. You know, of course, me and my wife had the conversation, and we agreed that we thought it was the right thing. And I wanted them to understand, because one of the reasons why I wrote the book was because I wanted to be my full self.
Yeah.
I couldn't even be a full father because I was still dealing with the things that I was trying to overcome as a child myself. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, I can't be the best father for them. And I'm still dealing with stuff when I was their age.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I was like, okay, got to have a conversation with them. Now, what I did try to think about is how I put the story.
Correct.
Because, you know, they're still kids and I didn't want to scare them off, anything like that. But we've had conversations with them about, hey, certain people or just family in general, we love family. However, you know, and it went well, you know, it was just a 4-person conversation, you know, and I told him, like, hey, when daddy was this age, you know, some things happened to me that shouldn't have happened to me, and you guys are around the same age. So this is a perfect time that I'm having these conversations with y'all, so y'all can understand how we think.
Yeah.
And I think that was important too, because whether it was the kids or family members in general, that was another blessing about the book. It was the fact that now people can understand why I acted the way I acted.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't explain it.
Yeah.
So when I had those moments of like not trusting family members that I genuinely love, they'd be like, yo, he's so like, he just like, he's very like over your shoulder. He don't really like, he trusts you, but he don't trust you. Or I'll like, you know, snap and be like, no, what are you doing with my kids? And they didn't understand. And so now that the book comes out, I think for me, that gets into the light again. This freedom is like, now being transparent, my sisters, my wife's sisters, my sister-in-laws, now we're able to just, like, I just spent Easter with them. This is the first time that I was around them since the book. And we was in Charlotte, and we was all in the same house. And I was like, in my mind, I'm thinking, what is this going to be like?
Yeah.
What, are they going to ask me a question? Am I going to get interviewed about the book?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was so peaceful. In all transparency, I didn't always have the best relationships with one of my sister-in-laws. And that was because I wasn't my best self. You know what I mean? So a lot of things I did, she didn't understand. But now now that she read the book, she's like, yo, it makes sense.
There's a grace.
He was
hurting.
Yo, he went through a lot and we didn't know. So that's a beautiful thing, the kids took it well. Eventually I will let them, when they get old enough, read the book. But I'm glad the way I did it. Yeah. Because again, I think our house right now, even our energy in our home is very like, you walk in, it's like, it's so fresh.
I love it.
It's so fresh. It's light. It's like, we have no secrets.
Yes.
And do you know how good it feels to have no secrets?
Yes.
Like, it's to just walk around just.
That's how I feel in my marriage.
Yeah. It's like, well, we can talk about anything.
Yes.
Let's talk about whatever. Like, so now, like, me and my wife crack. We always cracked up. But now, man, like, I said it in the book. It's like, I knew she was the one.
Yeah, but you knew.
But when you have somebody that when you tell them something that heavy and can say, I'm riding with you. Yeah. What we got to do. What you need from me. Yeah. Who I need to go to bat, like who I need to fuss out. How
are we going to do this?
How you
want to move.
How you want to move. Yeah. Like, and that was beautiful.
Yeah. And I thought about that because one of the things that when I was getting married, I was very afraid of, worried about was just being fully known. It was terrifying.
It still is. No, facts.
It was terrifying. I remember being in premarital counseling, and even before he proposed, when he had moved down here, so I knew he was going to marry me.
Yeah.
At some point. And we would talk about things like debt, things like school, things like and I was just telling this man everything, and I thought to myself, girl, you don't know if he's gonna marry you, And I remember being afraid to go into certain depths of conversation. But the freedom that I feel, and I tell you, my husband knows things about me that no one else knows.
It's
not my very best friend, not my parents, not my siblings. Yeah. There are things, and it's such a. It's a safety.
It's a beautiful place.
It's a very, very
beautiful. It's like you're living
place.
In your own world. Yes. You know what I mean? And it's like, yo, I've been missing this all this time. This is nice.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's like really on some dog, on my dog. Yeah. like it don't matter what
How many years
happened.
were y'all married before you told her? I couldn't get
together or married?
Together.
Together? 18.
Do you think she always knew something was up, or you think she had no clue?
She said she didn't.
No.
She always was concerned about just my overprotectiveness.
With the kid. That's what when I was reading that, I said, maybe she felt like something, she just didn't know what.
Yeah. And I wanted to tell her before the kids came.
Yeah.
But I wasn't in my place. I wasn't healed. And,
well, you also, seems like from the book, you were still trying to tell yourself it wasn't real or as bad or that big of a deal. So we were together for a long time. I seen both of her parents pass. So I seen her go through a lot of hurt, but she didn't necessarily see me go through a lot of hurt. And so I was still bearing mine, you know what I mean? And so I think more so than anything, when the kids came, I think it spotlighted it for sure, because I really became, my anxiety went through the roof. Yeah, because I was so like, especially when you go from no kids to having two and being a first time parent. Oh Lord!
So not only you get that first time parent, like I want to make sure everything's good, whatever. We like. We out here winging it. Like, we got two. Like, one is a lot. Two is so I'm trying to keep it together. And Yeah, so I think that's when it spiked for her.
Yeah.
I think she was like, yeah, you got some trust issues
Yeah.
here.
You know what I appreciated from reading what it seemed like happened, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. It seems like your wife did not for 1 second make it about her. Like, you know how sometimes you could tell somebody something like, well, why wouldn't you tell me?
Yeah.
Why didn't you tell me? Why, you know what I mean? And it seems like, at least in the book, she consoled you, she supported you. Maybe even if you guys did have some subsequent conversations, it never seemed to be about you having not told her.
Yeah.
And I think that's important.
Yeah.
Because sometimes when you tell somebody, you know, you may be a parent, right? And your adult child may be coming to you as you had to with your mom.
Yeah.
To tell you something that happened that's very difficult.
Yeah.
And when you make it about the, why didn't you tell me? And why didn't you feel like you could talk to me and all of that? It takes, and all those feelings may be valid.
Right.
But it's not about you.
It's not about you.
And people sometimes don't tell because they already feel a guilt from not having told you. So how important was it that your wife's posture was not that?
It's very important. And it's so crazy that you said that, because up until this point, that was such a great question. I don't think I realized that, but now looking back, she never made it about her. She never made it about her.
The first thing I thought.
She never made it about her. It was instantly what you want to do. You know, and that is, now I did have some other family members that did the whole. Of course. Well, I did the best, you know, but she never did that. You know, and that was super important, because then I think that stamped that, oh, okay, this is my safe space. Okay, she's not judging. Yeah. She's not, you know, asking, well, why didn't you tell me sooner? She's like, okay, I'm taking all this information. I'm laying it out on the table. All right, so what do we do with this? You know what I mean? That's what it was. So that was super important.
It made me think immediately, she's probably an incredible mom. That's the first thing I'm like, because, you know, it's hard. I think our generation is doing better. Yeah. But the generation before, baby, they make everything about them.
Yeah. It's like, how
that's what you got from what I just said?
Right. That's
all
right.
What you did. Like, you know.
Okay.
And so I appreciate, and it made me, because, you know, God's will, I'll be able to have children one day. And it made me feel like that's how I want to be. If my children, my spouse, my sister, my brother, my parent comes to me and says, I don't ever want to make it about, why didn't you feel like I could have helped you? I could have been there. Why didn't you tell me? Yeah. That's not the, clearly, that's not the point.
And you're and you're setting up such a great place for your kids just to come and just, you know, I joke about my kids because, you know, I love them babies. We have a relationship that is so open. My wife just said last night, like, that boy, that son of yours, like, he is at the age where he's going in my closet. He is like, she was like, you know,
you got the fresh stuff.
Right. She was like, you know that's your best friend, right? Like, he looks up to you. So I'm like, yo, if you wear a certain pair of sneakers, now he want to wear them. Like, it's little things. And it's that comfortability, you know? So, like, a lot of times, my son will walk in our closet, like he did it this morning. He walked in our closet, grabbed something, was like, Dad, can I wear it? It's like, I was like, yes, son. He's like, thank you. And it's like, I always waited for these moments. I waited for the moments of having kids that you could have these great, still be a parent, but still have those relationships. And when you have this open conversation and you feel like there's nothing for my child, there's nothing my kids don't know about me. Right. Now. So it's kind of like, okay. Yeah. It's free. It's life. Whatever.
I love it. I love it. And you're setting up such a dope legacy for your children, not just by the vulnerability and the honesty of this book, but by your entrepreneurship and who you are, right? So you have things like Bridging the Gap, where you're bringing together secular artists and artists in the Christian space, where you have Neiko's Flowers, where you want to give people their flowers, and you work at one of the most prestigious stations, Praise 102.5, working with Jacqueline Carr. You've interviewed the who's of the who's, whether through that show or through your own show that you have. I think it is so cool for young Black children to see their dad and mom run a business, create a brand, you know, and be able to pass them some nepotism if they so desire.
Yeah,
Right? Because
yeah.
I love that. I can't wait to have a nepo baby.
Yeah.
I want my child to be able to say,
Yep.
my mom, my dad,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
And it's just so important for us. And you said something that I thought was really cool. You said after writing this book, you now understand why God gave you this platform. You said that before. You thought it was just to be cool and be funny and have great conversations with people and interview people
Yeah.
and, you know, bring a different energy. But you
Yeah.
now understand why God gave you this platform. On this platform, while your children are watching, while your wife and you are building this up, what are your future goals? What are you feeling like, okay, this is the next thing that I want them to see us do?
Well, first, my kids, they've seen me do like everything from news. My kids, I tell people the funniest thing, my kids, when they were like 1 or 1.5 or 2, they ran on live TV when I was on the news on Fox. That was crazy. So they grew up, they've been growing up in it. And it's funny because they get to the point now they're so unbothered. They be hearing my voice on radio. They be like, hey, okay, that's my daddy. But what the crazy part is, their friends Googled me at school, and I was like, "What in the world?" The teacher hit me up like, so just in case kids reached out or what." I was like, "Lord Jesus," I didn't realize they cared because they were in a phase where they was like so unbothered by it. But I realized that now that I'm in this space of the book is out and, you know, the radio part has happened, I realized that, okay, God has gotten me here, and it wasn't necessarily because I love music. It's because he was setting me up all the time. So it was like, now that I'm here, now that I have this platform and the book is out, this is my real true purpose. It was to get my hurt and get people to their healing. And I think going forward, I really want to continue that. I really want to continue that. I tell people I found my purpose. I thought I knew my purpose, but I found my purpose. And unfortunately it happened from some bad things happening, but it's going to be able to uplift other people. I am working on doing some events for men.
Yes, I love it.
You know, specifically for men, people who have been, molested or violated, you know, who aren't comfortable with coming forward, or somebody who is also either going through or who has been through. And I really want to touch those people. I really want to help people break that stigma of it's okay to talk about it. It's okay to talk about it, because once they hear somebody else talking about it that look like them and who had a similar background, or maybe not even had a similar background, but something that's like, hey, Neiko did it and I want to talk about it too. So I really want to do like panels, events. That is heavy on my heart. Speaking, I want to travel. I want to speak. I just want to heal people. And that's people ask me all the time, I just want to heal people. I want to go and, hey, if somebody in Dallas said, hey, we got something, that a men's event, let's talk. You know, that is a beautiful place. I also want to continue to do television. I have really getting that back in me. My wife was like,
bitten by the bug.
It is. I am bitten by the bug.
I love it.
I would love to, at some point, write another one. That's an exclusive because everybody been asking me. I would love to write another one because, you know, it's been so much healing that came from it. But I would love to travel, be a speaker, and potentially maybe turn the book into a movie
or a series.
Or a series.
I love that.
Yeah.
Cool thing about the book is you say, abuse doesn't stop, when it ends. And I believe that it stops when you reach a point of healing and vulnerability. And that's what this book promotes. The book is about so much more than just the abuse. But you do a great job of not shying away from what happened. You even end with some journal prompts. And I love this because a lot of times you read books and they leave you like this heavy and you're like, what do I do with this? But you guys took the care to say, let's give these people some tools.
Because that's what happened with me. When you read the book, you know, in the book there's the letter. You know, the letter. And the letter would have never happened if I didn't get that myself. You know, my therapist really pushed me to go there because I didn't want to go there. And that was the start. And then he gave me some of those same to-dos.
Yeah.
Like, hey, let's work this thing backwards.
Yes.
Let's start backwards and work our way. Because obviously I can have a conversation with you all day, but if you don't give me any tools or you don't have the means, you know, then it's kind of like you said, you're just sitting with it. Like, okay, now
becomes heavy and
I've been through
overwhelming.
some stuff too, but what do I do? Like, should I write a book too? Well, how do I start? A lot of people don't start. And you said something earlier about the black community. We've been so like trained to what goes on in the house stays in the house, and to pray about it with no action. And I'm not saying don't pray about it. You should definitely pray about it, but there has to be action behind it. It has to be, you know. And also we got to break this curse of, hey, listen, I don't care if it's family, friend, coworker, spouse, I don't care who it is. If you are going through anything that is making you feel uncomfortable and it's abuse or whatever, a violation, it's okay to talk about it. And this is what this is about. It's about breaking down, it's kicking down the door and saying, I'm not going to accept this.
Anymore.
You
say here on the front of this book, the greater the obstacle, the greater the glory. What great glory are you experiencing in your life right now?
Oh man, so much. I'm excited. I'm so excited for the future. Like when I'm thrilled. Like this year is, me and my wife was looking at a calendar for this year, and I was like, oh God, what is happening? You know, like, you know, later on this year, I'll be inducted into the Gospel Hall of Fame. You know, I didn't see that coming at all. I didn't see it coming only because I was so focused on myself. I was still trying to heal myself that I didn't see it coming. Like I'm excited for all the opportunities. Like I just believe in this season, because I was obedient to what God had me to do, and that is write that book, My Hurt Your Heal. God has promised me that he is going to open up the floodgates. And he was like, now that you got over that, I was waiting for you to get to there. Because now you can walk into your true purpose. So I'm excited for all the opportunities.
I love it.
You know, I am looking to, there's no limit. There's no limit. There's no limit. Like when I tell you it's going to be big, I don't even know. I told my wife the other day, I said, I don't know what it is. But God was like, it's about to be different in a great way, you know, like, and that's what being obedient is. You know, it's like, okay, God, I know this is hard and this is mad uncomfortable. Okay, but here we go. I'm about to jump off the cliff. You know, so, and God was like, and you're going to be rewarded.
That parachute is there.
The parachute is there. I'm floating like a mug.
I love it. I love it. We ask a question to end out our show here. And it is, in the grand scheme of things, what do you want your legacy to be?
The light. I enjoy positivity. You know, I am really in this space of, I want to see everybody win. You know, I really get,
I feel that from you.
I really get excited when I see other people going for theirs. You know what I mean? Like I push. People call me the purpose pusher. Because I really enjoy seeing people live their best life. Because, you know, I grew up in a place of, and it's no disrespect, but I grew up in a place where only thing we knew was 9 to 5. You know, you worked that job for 30-some, 40 years.
It's your
you
job
retired.
working for the city?
That's
a good
it.
job working for the city?
That's it. Some good benefits. And that's it. That's all we knew. And so to see all the things that I've been able to accomplish, I just know that I am, not only for my children, which you had brought up earlier, which I think is super cool because they get to see their dad and their mom do some amazing things, you know, but to also be an example for family members and, you know, friends and colleagues to be like, yo, like he out here doing it. And to see where I started from. And to see, hey, it don't matter where you start. It matters, you know, if you have a goal and God has put it in your heart to do, run with that. So I really want to be the light. I want to be, somebody to just help people just get to where they need to be. So if that is for your TV show, which it will happen in Jesus' name. You know, if I have connects, if I can be like, yo, Lish is the best interviewer ever. Like, she gonna be, like that's what it is. Yeah. Like, I just love seeing people win.
Yeah.
And not feeling like just because they win, I can't.
Yeah, of course.
Because,
that ain't it.
That ain't it.
We've known it's enough room at the table.
It's enough room
at the table.
Exactly.
Nico, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for sharing your story. I hope that you're smelling your own flowers in this season of just freedom and peace and light.
Yeah.
And you know this already, but I will say it to you. You are certainly healing. You're a healing agent in this season.
Thank you.
And I believe that God is using you, and he is going to continue to elevate you because of what you've revealed. So thank you, man.
Yeah, thank you so much. Here. And your energy is amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me on the platform.
Absolutely.
And we're going to do this again.
Oh, for sure. Let's do it. Tell people where to find you. Tell people where to support you. Get the book on Amazon.
Yeah. Definitely. You can hit me up on Instagram, Facebook. On Instagram, it's Sir Neiko, SIRNEIKO. On Facebook, it is Neiko Flowers, my government name. And the book is on Amazon. And if you like a special copy, you can reach out to me, DM me, and I'll make that happen as well.
Nice. Well, I'm getting ready to get my book signed. But Neiko, thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely.
We're happy to have you back anytime you want, for sure.
Yes,
right?
Holy culture.
Awesome. This has been another episode of I'll Just Let Myself In with your girl Lish Speaks. We had Neiko Flowers here telling us about his amazing book. If you enjoyed this episode, please go ahead and share with a friend. If you're catching us on Sirius XM channel 140 at 8 p.m. Eastern time, thank you so much. Lock in with us every single Monday night. If you're catching us on Holy Culture's YouTube, please subscribe and share with a friend. If you're catching it on my YouTube, Lish Speaks, thank you so much for being here, and make sure to subscribe there as well. Please tell us how you feel about the podcast. If you're listening on a podcast subscription platform, be sure to write a review. And if you want to send us any letters, any information, any questions that you want us to answer, or topics you want us to cover, feel free to send it to speakers@lishspeaks.com. This has been another episode, and we'll see y'all same time, same place next week. Peace.
So have a great day.